his Nightveil Specters are just going to be better now. What you're going to see happen. He's playing against Matt Rice, playing black-white mid-range, a deck that we have seen start to pick up a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of the best predators in the format against mono black because Blood Baron is so good and it has a lot of similar tools. It's kind of a mono black deck that's splashing Blood Baron, possibly Last Breath in certain circumstances, a few sideboard cards. The cost of the black-white deck plays, of course, is in mana. Plays with more couples to play tap lands, a little less consistent mana, but it does pick up a nice advantage in black mirrors, again, because of Blood Baron.
Now, there is a blue card in Mr. Bernal's sideboard, and we will get to it in a little bit, but if you're familiar with Joe Bernal, this is very familiar territory for him, as we're going to see our first Thoughtseize cast of the day. You see an opposing Thoughtseize, an Underworld Connections, a Grey Merchant of Asphodel, a Swamp, a Temple of Silence, and another Thoughtseize. So these hands are going to be whittled away pretty quickly here.
Yeah, the mono-black mirror matches are often about attacking each other's hand early on, and then one person top-decking the first thing that matters. That can be Pack Rat, Underworld Connections in certain spots. The black-white deck has a little bit of an additional edge in the matchup because it has both Blood Baron and Elspeth, which are enormous top decks once both players have run out of resources.
You see the Thoughtseize here from Bernal going to reveal a Blood Baron of Escopa, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, a Hero's Downfall, and a Swamp. So Rice's hand is pretty expensive. That Underworld Connection is going to the graveyard. I think that was, obviously Matt's primary game plan. That's no longer with us. Now we take a look at Bernal's deck list. Again, we'll get to the blue splash in his sideboard in a moment, even though you do see a Temple of Silence in play for him, and there is a blue splash. But in his main deck, I take a look at the creatures here, Patrick. I've got 4 Desecration Demons, I've got 4 Grey Merchants, I've got 3 Nightveil Specters. Normally you see 4 Nightveils, but that number can change. But those are the stock guys. What you also see here is 4 copies of Lifebane Zombie in the main deck. And more importantly, 0 Pack Rats.
Wow. So pretty gutsy metagame prediction here from Joe.
That is a loud statement. And he has started off 2-0, but again, we're playing 11 rounds of Magic this weekend, 14 for the champion, whoever that will be. And to issue Pack Rat in favor of Lifebane Zombie, that's a pretty loud statement. I think part of the reason that he's doing that is, one, because of the existence of Bile Blight, so the mono black mirrors changed, but 2, Green Monsters has picked up a lot on the Open Series circuit.
Yeah, and Pack Rat's not very efficient against that deck. Joe is a person with no aversion to making gutsy metagame calls. We saw him do very well in a Legacy Open not that long ago with Back to Basics main deck, 3 copies, I believe. So Joe is very aggressive in the way that he builds his decks.
You got a second Thoughtseize here from Bernal, which Rice did know about. It's going to take care of one of those Blood Baron Viscopas. Rice was able to draw another one for his last draw step. The Elspeth and the Hero's Downfall, it's still there. But Bernal is the one here that has the Underworld Connections, not Rice. And so that's going to make things difficult for Matt. He did pick up a Thoughtseize for this turn, but that's not a land. And I think a land is the thing that he really needs right now to be able to deploy those Blood Barons. You see Joe's hand right now, double Grey Merchant and a Devour Flesh, which would take care of that first Blood Baron. But now it's just going to go to the graveyard.
Yeah, and this might be, one of the spots where we see the edge that Black-White has in this kind of matchup. If Matt's able to draw a land next turn, Joe, by all accounts, should be well ahead of the game with his Underworld Connections, but it is possible that Blood Baron can just steal it.
Bernal's going to go down to 8 after this Underworld Connections activation. You see a Temple of Silence. He's going to play that first before casting that Thoughtseize that he drew for his draw step to get some extra information. Now, presumably this Thoughtseize is going to take down the Blood Baron. That's over there in Rice's group, but he wants to make sure he knows exactly what he's working with for the next turn, or maybe what he won't be working with for the next turn if he puts that card on the bottom, which is what he's going to do. And now he knows that, okay, I can fire off some Grey Merchants here, moving forward, but let's get that Blood Baron out of there and know exactly what I'm going to be doing. So Thoughtseize will take care of the mythic creature, leaving Rice with a Hero's Downfall with no really good targets. Sure, it can take care of a Grey Merchant, but that's not all that exciting. And that Elspeth. Now you take a look at Rice. He drew his 5th land, so perfect Thoughtseize there for Bernal. And now you take a look at his mana base. Mutavault's going to come crashing in, but no second white source.
Yeah, and that Thoughtseize was right on time there for Joe, as that Blood Baron would have probably been lights out. Now he has an opportunity to start playing these Grey Merchants and pulling back a little bit of life total he's lost. He is behind the gun. This Mutavault's done a lot of damage. He's done a lot of damage to himself with these Thoughtseizes and Underworld Connections. So even though oh my goodness.
That is a very, very big draw there for Rice. Peels the second white source. It's a Godless Shrine. I think he's happy to pay 2. He'd probably pay more than 2 if he had to be able to slam Elspeth Sun's Champion into play. And one thing you saw on Rice's turn, when Bernal cast that Grey Merchant, is that with the trigger on the stack, he Hero's Downfall. And so Bernal would only gain 2 life as opposed to 4. Smart play. You can tell that he's very comfortable in this sort of matchup here. And now the Soldier tokens are going to come in. And now Bernal is in a some serious trouble. He does have a hero's downfall. He's sitting at 6, but again, he's in a tight spot here. You see the soldier tokens will be replaced by older soldier tokens, but we're all good to go on that front. And if you're Bernal, now you have to ask yourself, okay, can I activate Underworld Connections? Do I play a Grey Merchant? Do I just have to downfall that that Elspeth, and then I go down to 3 from the attacks? I'm not in a great spot.
Yeah, Joe's hand is actually pretty well equipped to deal with everything here as a Hero's Downfall and a Grey Merchant and a Night Veil Spectre. He just doesn't have enough time or mana to get everything out of his hand.
Yeah. And, I mean, if you're Joe as well, you need Rice to brick on the next turn or subsequent turns to be able to make it out of this alive. Now, you see Bernal's going to analyze the situation. Again, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Night Veil Spectre, and a Hero's Downfall in his hand. Elspeth, problem number 1. And he does have the answer to it, but is it correct to cast the answer right now? That's the question. Because, again, Bile Blight changes things. Bile Blight's great in this situation. If Joe were able to draw 1, he does have only 2 in his main deck, though.
Yeah, it's just, you know, if you Hero's Downfall here, the Elspeth, you fall down to 1, you can play Grey Merchant the following turn, and then you need Matt to miss a bunch of draws and for you to draw pretty well to get out from under there. But there may not be a better path for Joe to take.
Don't know what I would do in this spot. It's really a tricky one here, and you see that's why Joe's taking his time trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? What am I trying to draw to? I'm sure he's weighing into his calculations right now as well as, am I supposed to draw a card with Underworld Connections? Because that's a scary thing to do when you're sitting at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So what will the multiple Open Series top 8 competitor, a couple of championships for him as well, look to do on his turn? I mean, Rice with just a huge draw of that Goblet Shrine.
Yeah, there's only 6 untapped white sources that are in Matt Rice's deck. He has 2 Hallowed Fountains and 4 Goblet Shrines.
Yeah. And all you can see from Bernal, you saw a little bit of a grimace there and a bit of a, shaking of the head saying, man, just unfortunate draw, and now I have to see if I can claw my way out of this. Maybe I was supposed to take one of those with one of those Thoughtseize an Elspeth, but I think his Thoughtseizes were correct.
Yeah, he was taking Blood Barons the whole way. No connections. I mean, those cards would have been lights out too.
Yeah.
Just even if that's let's say that's even a shrine or a temple rather on that turn, Joe might just be able to leverage his resources enough to beat Elspeth the following turn. But that turn with Joe at the life total he's at, that might have just been too much.
So you see he taps 3 mana. And now he's going to tap 5 mana. Okay, so he's going to go with the Grey Merchant. Okay, so Bernal's going to go up to 10, and he's got a blocker out there, which is important because that's going to stop Mutavault from attacking, we think. We'll see what Mr. Rice draws to this turn. And it looks like Rice drew a Bile Blight.
Not a shabby draw here. It allows him to attack into the Grey Merchant.
Not bad at all. So now Mutavault's going to get fired up, and if you're Bernal, you're just going, oh, goodness. Yeah, is that Mutavault attacking? Okay, it is. And he says, all right, Bile Blight that before damage. Now you're going to take care of that. You see just the power of Bile Blight here. When it's not killing pack rats, it does still shrink things.
Yeah, no, it's an efficient removal spell, and there's some threats it's especially well suited to fight against.
So now Rice is going to move Elspeth up. 3 more soldier tokens are going to come into play. And now if you're Bernal, it might be Bile Blight or bust time.
Yeah, Joe could have potentially, if Matt draws a land that turn, then it does leave him in a position where Bile Blight gets him out. But he has picked it up this turn that allows him to get out from under this altogether.
Yeah, and that's a huge, huge draw there from Bernal because now he gets the Bile Blight to take care of those 6 soldiers. And now all of a sudden, this game is turned back around. Rice is playing off the top of his deck. He draws a Swamp. All he's got is a Mutavault. And now looks like Bernal may have climbed his way out of this situation. So now the Mutavault's going to put Bernal down to 5, but he's happy to untap right now. And let's see what he finds for his draw step. It's an Underworld Connections. Not sure if he needs another one of those, but a Night Veil Spectre is a pretty gosh darn good place to start.
Yeah, Joe, he has a lot of answers to his deck. 2 Mutavault, he needs to find one of them soon. He does have to fade some removal spells out of Matt's deck here because he needs to be blocking with his Night Veil Spectre, but Joe went from dead to, his head's still above water for the time being.
Now, here comes a Night Veil Spectre. Pass the turn back, another Swamp off the top for Rice. All he can do is play it and pass the turn back. Bernal's going to untap very quickly, probably breathe a sigh of relief, and we'll see if Night Veil Spectre is going to come to the red zone. Are we going to activate connections when you're sitting on 4? He's going to start with a Spectre attack. Let's see what Bernal can find from the trigger. It is a Blood Baron. Yeah, and I'm going to put that into play. That's exactly what Bernal does. Ooh, but Rice draws a Blood Baron of his own. Okay.
But Joe's got lethal coming across.
Yeah, Joe has lethal right on the board, however. Oh, okay, well, hold on a minute. Now, Rice has that other land in his hand. So what Rice can do now is play Blood Baron and have the mana to activate Mutavault to block. But, now that's tricky right there, because Bernal says, okay, you're dead, but that's not the actual truth in that situation.
Well, Joe did have Hero's Downfall in his hand.
Okay, then he's good to go.
Yeah, he was good. He was actually good to go.
Okay, and you see Bernal brings his eyebrows there as he knows, okay, I got out of that one alive. Joe Bernal does win game number 1 with Mono Black Devotion over Matt Rice. Rice is going to have the option to play first, so we'll go over to Black-White mid-range's sideboard first. What's he got?
2 Drawn in Sorrow, 3 Lifebane Zombie, 3 Duress, 2 Revoke Existence, 2 Erebos, a Doomblade, and 2 Obsidats. So Revoke Existence is a new tool here. You know that Underworld Connection is in the deck. Most people do bring in some copies of Erebos in the post-board games. It's able to remove gods, so you may see that come in. Matt's actually playing one in his main deck as well. The additional copies of Duress are pretty good here. Very spell-oriented and attrition-oriented, so more discard spells, nice as well.
We take a look at Bernal's side here. I've kind of teased a little bit. He's got those 4 Temple Deceits and 4 Water Graves. You're probably wondering yourself at home, what's the blue splash for? Is it just to facilitate Nightveil Spectre? No. Now, if you know Joe Bernal, when we were in Columbus, when he played against Adam Franzi in the semifinals for you historians out there, part of the reason that Franzi had to one-outer that Pyroblast is because Bernal had a Notion Thief in play against old Grizzlebrand. Well, he's got 3 of those in his sideboard this weekend, and I would love to sit down with him and see why exactly he's playing that card. And I will tell you this much. We got 11 rounds of Magic today. Joe Bernal, a fantastic player, probably going to be making a deep run to this tournament. I'd love to hear some Notion Thief stories.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some goodies.
I think there are going to be a couple because that card is not on your standard metagame radar. That is for sure. 3 of those on the board to go along with 4 Duress, 4 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, a Dark Betrayal, a Bile Blight, and 3 copies of Doomblade. Much like you, I like Duress coming in from Bernal's side. I also like Erebos, God of the Dead in this matchup. It's one of its specialties here in the Revelation decks. You got to like Dark Betrayal, of course. Probably like that singular Bile Blight, too, because you have to assume that even though I don't have Pack Rats, my opponent probably does.
Yeah. Although I have seen in these post-board games, having too much creature removal be a pretty bad thing.
Absolutely.
Because they're the things that rot in your hand, and there's so much discard going on that it's very rare for them to be really efficient. You need to have some of it, of course, and Joe especially needs to be conscious of Blood Baron, but it is definitely easy to have too much removal.
Now, one other thing to keep in mind here again, for those of you guys just joining us, Joe Bernal, Mono Black Devotion sitting at 2-0, Matt Rice, Black-White mid-range 2-0. Black-White mid-range has been picking up a little bit here. They've got Blood Barons, they've got Elspeth, all of that stuff. Bernal was able to sneak out game number 1. And you think in this matchup, of course, about Pack Rat and how important that card is on both sides of the board. Bile-Blight has changed things a little bit, so much, in fact, and for Bernal's line of thinking, that he has no Pack Rats in his deck. He's got 4 Lifebane Zombies, and that's a card, actually, in this matchup, that's really good. Obsidian and Blood Baron can be taken.
Yeah, and if you look at, the Nashville results, there was red-green monsters all through the top 16. There was a lot of that deck as well.
A lot of Black-White mid-range there, too. So you see Black-White mid-range really starting to pick up. It's really picked up a following on Magic Online. That's where you see it a lot. It hasn't really translated into a ton of real-life results, but we have seen it a lot at Orlando. Brendan DeCandio making the finals there before losing to Tyler Wilkerson. But we have seen Black-White mid-range pick up a lot over the past couple of weeks here. You see Matt Rice off to a nice start here. Kind of unfortunate maybe to lose that first game. Hard to say. Fortunate to be able to play that Elspeth on time. So very swingy game.
Yeah, and Joe played extremely well there.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe set up. Of course, he had to draw one of his Bile Blights there to get out, but he set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
With the way that he sequenced his last few turns. So
playing to his outs the best that he could.
Yeah.
So that's why you see Joe Bernal, the one next to his name, not next to Rice's. He's up a game. And, of course, if you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, StarCityGames.com Open Series here in St. Louis. Tweet at SCG Live, hashtag SCGSTL. We'll be doing 11 rounds of Standard today. Tomorrow morning, we'll come back 8 a.m. here in St. Louis. We'll do our elimination rounds, our quarters, give you 3 months of premium. Our semis 6, our finals 12. That total is 21 months. My math right?
Yeah.
I'm so good at math.
12 plus 6 plus 3 is 12
so
plus 9 is, yeah.
I'm so good at math. Wow.
I'm not surprised to see Joe to have a lot of temples in his deck. He's a player with no sensitivity to playing a lot of comes into play tap lands. He won a Standard Open a little while back with a Rakdos deck with 4 Rakdos Guildgates in his main deck, which was not on people's radars. We're talking Rakdos Cackler style.
Hyper aggressive.
Yeah. So Joe is definitely a player willing to play a lot of comes into play tap lands in his deck. And the Mono Black deck, of course, much slower than the Rakdos deck that he won that Open with.
Our leaderboard standings for Joe Bernal, he's sitting in 37th place right now. Part of the reason for that, of course, his semifinals appearance when we were in Columbus with his Back to Basics Legacy deck, getting one-outed by that Pyroblast. I keep reminding Joe about that, so when he goes back and watches the coverage, he just has to cringe each time. One-outer Pyroblast. One-outer Pyroblast. All right. It was tough to watch, but it was also kind of fun to watch, too.
Yeah.
As we're going to see a discard spell obviously lead the way here. Bernal's going to show you his hand. He's got a Duress, a Devour Flesh, an Erebos, and a Lifebane Zombie, along with Watery Grave, a Temple of Deceit, and then Underworld Connection. So there goes the Duress. As Bernal's going to quickly take a draw step here. He goes a Mutavault. We'll probably see him lead with the Temple. That's where he's going to start. Take a look at the top card here and see what he wants to do with it as he brings Watery Grave forward in his hand.
And the Watery Grave is the first sign in Joe's deck that something different is going on. That actually might give Matt some pause here.
Yeah, but Matt didn't see that in the first game.
Right.
And that's really, really important. As Matt's going to play a Temple of Silence, he'll decide how he wants to scry after he consults his hand, of which you can see a Bile-Blight hanging out over there. And of course, Bile-Blight's going to do a nice job of taking care of Lifebane Zombie, but assuming that Lifebane Zombie does grab something, you see Duress here, then Lifebane Zombie accomplished its goal, which is to be a 2-for-1. So Duress is going to take a look at Underworld Connections, Devour Flesh, Erebos, Lifebane Zombie. Connections, I think, predictably going to the graveyard, along with that Water Grave that you mentioned, and the Mutavault. So this is typically what we see in the Mono Black Mirror, these discard spells flying back and forth.
Yeah, and Lifebane Zombie is actually something, you know, for as good as the matchup is typically for Black-White against Mono Black Game 1, the post-board games, if anything, I think Mono Black gets favored, as Lifebane Zombie is so awesome, and Black-White doesn't really have a card of commensurate power to bring in their deck.
Now, Bernal played a Devour Flesh, or excuse me, he played a Mutavault that turn to be able to cast Devour Flesh if he needed to. Obviously did not need to, as Rice just played a Temple of Silence and passed the turn back. But Rice picked up a Blood Baron for his draw step. He scryed, and he kept a Blood Baron, I believe, on top of his deck, and he did. So now he has 2 copies of Blood Baron in his hand, and now he's going to play that Revoke Existence to take care of that Underworld Connections. But again, we see Rice with a little bit of mana issues, does not play a 4th land, so Bernal's going to draw a Swamp, and we might see the Zombie, but he's going to go with Erebos instead.
Yeah, I think that Joe, you know, he played his Underworld Connections last turn instead of playing the Lifebane Zombie. I think he wants to wait until Matt has 4 mana to give him maximum time to do other things with his mana and find as many Blood Barons as possible.
Sure.
You know, like, if he Lifebanes him and Matt doesn't have Blood Baron in his hand that turn, but draws it the following turn, it's a disaster.
Yep.
So give Matt as much time as possible.
You see Blood Baron is going to get removed here from Lifebane Zombie. Rice, with the trigger on the stack, Bile-Blighted to take care of the Lifebane Zombie. So you see Rice's hand of Blood Baron and Bile-Blight. So Bernal's got the information. He's got to pass the turn back. Hope Rice doesn't draw a land. He draws a Blood Baron instead. So he's heavy on the Blood Barons yet again this game, as Bernal's going to take a draw step. He finds a Mutavault. We'll see what he wants to do on this turn. He does have an answer for at least 1 Blood Baron.
Yeah, he just needs to, you know, he does have the 1 answer in his hand with Devour Flesh. He just needs to find now another answer before Blood Baron's able to take over. And he has a lot of them. They could be Lifebane Zombie, another Devour Flesh. So
Thoughtseize,
yeah.
Everyone's favorite. Swamp is not what he was looking for, but might find it use for that over the course of the game here, as Erebos did draw Bernal a card at the cost of 2 life. We'll see how Bernal wants to continue on with this turn. He's used his Mutavault to activate Erebos, so it won't be attacking there, but he also does know about the Bile-Blight that's hanging out in Rice's hand, so it's probably for the best. So you see Bernal look at his hand here. He does have another copy, I believe, of Underworld Connections hanging out. You see Gray Merchants over there, Devour Flesh that we've mentioned. You see if Bernal wants to add anything to his board or just leave up another copy of the Erebos activation as well.
Yeah, right now I think the debate is what's the upside of being able to find a discard spell and cast it this turn versus what's the upside of being able to use my mana this turn to Devour Flesh in the event that Matt draws a land with which to cast his Blood Baron. Given the upside is so huge if he finds Thoughtseize this turn, and the flexibility doesn't mean too much, I like Joe's play here of just trying to find another card.
And he does get 2 cards deeper. He's at 14 life right now, as Rice looks like he drew that 5th land in the form of Godless Shrine, but he puts it into play tapped. Interesting. He just passes the turn back.
He's likely aware of the Devour Flesh from an earlier discard spell, so...
It just feels like to me that you have to kind of power through that because that's not going away.
Yeah, with the second Blood Baron in his hand, I feel like you just have to kind of cast there, especially with the risk of Lifebane Zombie in Joe's deck. You know it's there, so they're a sitting target potentially.
And not only do you know that's there, but you know Thoughtseize is there as well. So your hand, you know, whenever I play against Mono Black, I always feel like, okay, I just got to get these cards out of my hand. That's all I have to, like, I do as fast as I can because it's so annoying when if I kind of sandbag it and they draw a discard spell, it just blows up in your face.
Yep.
It could be obviously a little bit frustrating here. It looks like Bernal has made another activation here of an Erebos, just passing the turn back. So he's putting his card advantage engines online at the cost of some very important life points. You see Hallowed Fountain going to come into play tapped here for Rice. Now he is going to cast Blood Baron of Escopa. And Bernal says, all right, Devour Flesh that. You can go to 24. That's fine with me. And Bernal will quickly untap. Sitting here with 6 mana, 2 Mutavaults. Draws a Thoughtseize, and this is exactly what you talk about here. Because had he played had he played the Blood Baron last turn, he would be able to cast this one this turn, and that Thoughtseize ends up being a pretty poor draw. I mean, sure, it could take care of a Bile Blight, but that doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah, this was Matt got punished for his decision, certainly.
So now Bernal looks like he's going to use that other 5 mana, see what he wants to deploy, but he's in the driver's seat right now, knowing that Rice doesn't have any Mutavaults hanging out over there, and he's got just a lone Bile Blight that he has to beat. No card drawing engine online. There's a Grey Merchant. Looks like it's going to be for 3 total, 2 from the Grey Merchant itself, 1 from the Erebos. So a little drain and gain. I won't use brain and drain because it's not Oakstat. That would be disrespectful. As Bernal does pass the turn back here. You see a Pack Rat here from Rice, and this is kind of what we talk about here with how Bile Blight has changed things. Because you see Pack Rat show up to the party, and a lot of the times in this matchup, Pack Rat plays a huge role. In this particular game where we're at right now, not so much.
Yeah, this would be a spot where Matt's behind enough where even Pack Rat might not necessarily get him out of it. But now with Bile Blight, it's not even a thing Joe really has to worry about. In fact, Joe might be happy to let him discard some cards for some turns and then just Bile Blight them all away.
I was going to say, you can kind of trap him, right? You can play a little game where, oh yeah, go ahead, make a rat, make another rat. All right, kill them all, and you've lost all of your cards. See Bernal here plays a land for the turn. Looks like he's going to fire up some Mutavaults, and he feels that he's in the driver's seat, so he's going to attack here for 6 across 3 creatures. And this is going to be a Bile Blight that's going to take care of both Mutavaults, and it looks like Bernal is perfectly okay with that exchange.
Yeah, a little curious for him when he knew about the Bile Blight to fire up the second Mutavault there.
Yeah.
Unless he's trying to open up the door for something.
It feels like he probably is, because I think, obviously he knew that the Bile Blight was there, so he fired up both Mutavaults into the Bile Blight, perfectly happy with making that exchange of resources, and passes the turn back with the ability to activate Erebos twice on the end step if he would like. As Pack Rat's going to come across here, you're going to see an activation, and now there is Bile Blight after those come into play to take care of that. So Bernal is going to untap here. He's going to take a draw step, see if he can get 2 more Devotion out there. There's a Lifebane Zombie, so the answer is yes.
That's going to turn it on.
Now Erebos, God of the Dead, is going to come rumbling in. An attack here for 7 is going to put Rice down to 8. Looks like he's facing lethal on the following turn. Bernal's going to play a swamp post-combat. Again, threaten 2 activations of Erebos. And you can see a player here in Bernal, as Rice does draw a Lifebane Zombie. But you can see a player here who is very prepared for the Mono Black Mirror.
Yeah, for him to be able to sort of surgically attack Black-White of all decks, typically one of the Mono Black's harder matchups, is really impressive.
See, Bernal's going to activate Erebos twice. He's going to go down to 9. He'll take a draw. He says, Dark Betrayal, get that out of the way, attack for everything, and that is going to do it. So Joe Bernal, number 37 on our leaderboard here on the Open Series, is looking to move on up. He defeats Matt Rice 2-0. Mono Black don't need no Pack Rats as he moves on to 3-0.
Yeah, and to me, the Pack Rat situation is pretty